Before I get into my regularly scheduled tirade, someone asked me, why would Trump want to pardon his kids if they weren't doing something wrong? I could understand someone asking that question if they'd had their heads buried in the sand for the last 5 years. It's quite simple. With all of the constant accusations that have been thrown at him by a group of toxic career politicians, the same group of career politicians that some people are now actually cheering for and supporting.
They've done a new study that shows Americans are dumber than the average human being.
But we're still kicking ass in childhood obesity.
Look at what the Socialist Democrats have accused him of doing without any evidence. A Russia hoax that contained fabricated or exaggerated testimony paid for by his opposition. That lasted 3 years until they found out Obama's FBI had lied over and over and over again and used their positions of power to focus on him while giving her a free pass. And they said, you should believe them or you are un-American. When they were caught lying, cheating, and spying with evidence, the same people told us not to believe it or you would be un-American. It's the typical socialist Democrat game of heads I win, tails you lose. What about when the DNC was caught cheating in the 2016 DNC primary? Oh, yeah, we'd forget about that. How about the impeachment from a phone call that was blown out of context, filled with imaginary insinuations by a guy who can legally lie in the halls of Congress and face no repercussions? Now, anyone who knows law and or have been to court knows you can't win a case by feelings or assuming what someone is doing or thinking. So for so many people to believe the professional liars, it's quite remarkable. But I guess that's why they're professionals.
A recent study suggests that our species has been getting dumber.
I would do the same thing for my kids when dealing with this insane, toxic socialist regime. Who knows what they'll do now that the honest and fraud-free election picked the pal of the Chinese government and his token VP pick, who wasn't good enough to get the support to be president, but suddenly is. But anyway, moving on to my tirade, I get a kick out of people and their new devotion to the religion of science. The same science that said the earth was flat, that cigarette smoking was good for you, leeches will suck out all the bad blood. Don't get me wrong, science is good, but it's not the end-all be-all of everything. We only make it that to fit our agenda. Many don't even realize they're doing it. We've all become citizen scientists because we can use Google, at least what Google allows you to see, since they've manipulated people into thinking censorship is actually custom search results, and most have never seen an actual scientific paper on anything beyond the ingredients of a Taco Bell gordita. If America was founded on Judeo-Christian values, and those values are what help give us our freedoms, some are trying to remove those freedoms under the guise of saving people. What better way to get people to comply than with fear and guilt? We should be listening to science, blah, 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 blah. What exactly is science saying? That we should lock up everybody? Where does it say that? Is there an amendment, or is that in the Bill of Rights? Oh, that's right. We, the people, have the right to have all of the rights bestowed upon us as Americans to be removed when other people say so because science. I'm just wondering where these people were just 2 years ago when over 44 million people got the flu in the U.S. and almost 100,000 died from it. Were their lives not as important? They said not one word when the countless numbers of black men were dying on the streets of Chicago, killed by other black men. But that's your fault because racism and unconscious bias. They don't say one word about all the babies being aborted every year. Nothing. But now they're concerned about people's lives. How about the last coronavirus? But last time it targeted kids. We even made a statement how we couldn't just shut down everything. But apparently those people who said we couldn't stop everything back then suddenly insist we shut everything down now. Because because science. They were wanting to shut things down when we had less than 1,000 deaths this year. That's weird. Science also says you shouldn't eat most of the junk you eat and drink. That leads to more deaths and harm to people's health than anything on the planet. How come you're not listening to science? And I think there may be some miscommunication about this too. Most conservatives believe this coronavirus exists. It can kill some, just like the normal flu. And most don't think shutting down everything is the right call. And while some blindly go along with what their political party promotes under the cloak of because science said so, why have we never done it this way until now? Kind of like the new way we voted this year, suddenly. You can puke out all you want about what you think, which is just like this, an opinion. All science is math. An equation. Don't get me wrong, they've been trying to change math lately. 2 + 2 now equals racism.
Getting dumber.
The brilliance of all this is that the communist country this virus came from would want us to hide in our houses while everything's shut down. Except our government, of course. Because science. And why do those virus panic pushers insist we listen to science now, but when a scientist says big tech is manipulating people on a massive scale with techniques new to the psychiatric field, they ignore that. Or they try to discredit the scientist. Actually, they try to discredit at any scientist that doesn't say what they want them to say, because there have been plenty of scientists that oppose any lockdowns. You just don't hear much about those. It's dangerous information. Funny how that works, right? And big tech may be manipulating on a massive scale, but not you, though. Funny how there's never a solution that everybody agrees on. There's always a side to each one of these issues. Actually, there's common sense, and then there's Democrat policy. One side wants to plow through and make the best of the situation. The other side always seems to be overdramatic and causes more problems than they solve. Hey, I was a Democrat for over 30 years, and even I see it. But then I sobered up. I fear for the vulnerable Google scholars who are suddenly putting their entire faith into a field they know very little about. If you truly understood science, then you would know there is no moral compass with science. All science is an equation. It's math. The universe is based on it, by the way, but you knew that. Math doesn't offer opinions. Science doesn't say, I think we should do this or that. Science says, this is or isn't. So when people say, we need to listen to science on this, they're either being insincere and manipulating you, or they don't understand science. Science allows us to better understand things. It doesn't suggest anything. A human's moral compass does that. And there lies the problem. Some want to pretend to save lives of a small number of people at the cost of everybody else. Common sense would tell you to hide the vulnerable so the rest can keep things going. Many have a problem with common sense, and if you look at their policies in the past, that's obvious. This is a big reason why Trump is such a problem to them. No common sense allowed in this arena. Instead, Bizarro World thinks we should hide everybody while letting the entire country fold. Because science. Those same people have never used science for anything else like this, but suddenly are. Just like they cared less about saving any lives before this. They're suddenly champions for life-saving. Remember, science said smoking was good for us. What do we do when trees get a virus? What do we do when livestock get a virus? What does the rest of the animal kingdom do? Because that's science. Nobody seems to think to vet these new prophets. Do you know anything about any scientist you put so much faith into? Can you name one? Other than Fauci, of course. And we all know what type of scientist he is. Wink, wink. And just like with anything else, there are good and bad people in any field. There are stupid people and smart people everywhere. You're listening to one now. Answer this. Are there more critical thinkers or stupid people in this country? We like to pick and choose what we spew out as Google scientists. Those same people have selectively forgotten what science said out of the gate. We cannot hide from this, but we can try to slow it down so we don't overburden the healthcare system. You know, the same healthcare system the socialist Democrats say that we're entitled to for free, which is a totally different train wreck to discuss on another day. And if we've been making masks mandatory, except for when we're rioting, wiping things down, social distancing, Black Lives Matter, etc., why is it still spreading? Even our aged, unhealthy president got this and recovered, like most do, just like a normal flu. I'm not saying this is a normal flu, and I mourn for those lost. Like you've heard before, the solution can't be worse than the problem. I wouldn't expect everyone else to lose their livelihood all because of me. I am not that selfish. Maybe we've been conditioned to be so entitled. Everybody but you, of course. We expect other people to solve our problems, but ignore the people who caused these problems. Not everybody has equal money. The government should fix it. Not everybody has health insurance. The government should fix it. Some people say things I don't like or agree with. The government should fix it. And now our state leaders are pretending like they can actually do something about this. Because we expect them to fix this problem too. They're as helpless as we are, but they sure are pretending to do something even though the things that they're doing are hurting the silent majority, while a small minority of 330 million people have been placed in their own victim group. The rest are losing jobs, losing businesses, losing their homes, losing the lives that they've built for themselves. Oh, but they should be willing to lose it all, because science. And while people are losing everything, our governor lost hundreds of millions of dollars in relief money to Nigerian scammers. Maybe that's why people can't get their unemployment checks. And it doesn't surprise me he got reelected. What does that say about Washington voters?
Our species has been getting dumber.
The press hasn't told you too much about that stuff, so it must not be true.
Dumber.
Remember, science still can't tell us how the pyramids were built, but hey, science says most of the preservatives in our food is bad for us. Science said so let's shut down all those companies that manufacture food and items that are bad for us and the environment. If we're going to join the science cult, then we have to go all in. We can't just pick and choose what's convenient. I say the same thing to people who say they're born again, but then they criticize and judge others because they happen to disagree with the way someone lives. You can't just pick and choose. Look at how many people are celebrating Christmas, the symbolic birth of Christ, but ignore everything else about being a Christian. Those entitled have transformed Christmas into something convenient for them, even redefined it. Because now, you can catch heat for saying Merry Christmas to someone, which consists of two amendments, freedom of speech and freedom of religion. But those same overdramatic think tanks complain that the government should put a stop to it. You're not allowed to say Merry Christmas, but you can show up to the Walmart doorbuster Christmas sale. Anyway, most of the people babbling about science are only doing so for one or two reasons. None of them have to do with saving lives, and the ones who follow them are just too stupid to understand what's going on. And the sad thing is, the bandwagon jumpers think they're being noble, while the others happen to know exactly what they're doing. And this commentary happens to be my opinion mixed in with facts that I've researched for myself. Lately, people who say things that conflict with the Socialist Democrat agenda get labeled a threat to society, since it's not in lockstep with what their socialist scientists say. To them, people have no independent choices. They want to custom tailor your information to fit what they want you to believe. That's not freedom. And what does science say about freedom? I'm sure you've read the actual scientific paper on that, and not some socialist Democrat reporter's opinion on that paper, because that's what you've been getting. But being the halfway intelligent, alert, and aware citizen scientist yourself, you knew that, right? Of course you did. Nothing gets by you. I'm just a blowhard with facts and an opinion.
Evolution does not necessarily reward intelligence. With no natural predators to thin the herd, it began to simply reward those who reproduced the most and left the intelligent to become an endangered species.
I don't know. Just call it how I see it.